Chapter 12. Peg's with her mother, and you won't be needing me, Melba said to Alfred when he and Danny returned to the farm that evening. I'm wanted at home, so I'll be on my way tomorrow. I thought you'd stay for the wedding, Alfred said. Melba avoided his eyes and only said, Been away from home too long. It was good of you to help us, Alfred said. I can't thank you enough. For some reason, Danny didn't understand. Melba looked guilty instead of pleased. She smoothed down her skirts and spoke quickly. I know Gussie's not much of a cook, but she'll do till your new wife takes over. In the meantime, if there's anything you want, call on Annie. Melba gave a long sigh. Dear Annie is so good-hearted, she'd already offered to send over some baked goods now and then, perhaps a roast, and a few other things for your dinners. She didn't go all the trouble, Alfred said. In fact, I wish she wouldn't. Now he looked guilty. Nonsense, Melba said. Annie truly cares for your welfare, Alfred. I'm surprised you can't see that. Danny couldn't stand it any longer. He rushed out of the kitchen where Gussie was preparing to leave. Ma's supposed to marry my foster father, he blurted out, but everybody tries to get in the way. I don't know what to do. Gussie buttoned the last button on her coat and tied the scarf over her hair. It's up to your ma and Mr. Swenson, not to you. But having him get married was my idea. Gussie nodded. That's why your ma came out here. So why worry about it? She opened the back door and turned before she could step outside. Just stop your fretting about whether or not they'll get married. There ain't anything you can do about it. Danny just stared at the door after Gussie closed it behind her. Oh, yes, there was something he could do. He just had to figure out what it was. Alfred rode to town to see Ma the next few evenings, but he came home as solemn and serious as when he left. Danny wished he would talk about Ma, but he didn't. Gussie reported that just about every day while Danny was at school, Mrs. Pratka brought over favorite dishes for the noon meal and stayed to eat and chat with Alfred. About what? Danny demanded. Gussie shrugged. About nothing very important. She does most of the talking, but the mister's getting kind of used to her, I think, because every now and then he has something chatty to say himself. Danny groaned. He hurried outside to help Alfred, who was shoveling a path of snow from the house to the barn. Do you ever see Mr. Murphy the blacksmith when you're in town? Danny asked him. Alfred nodded. Matter of fact, I do. He often stops at Mrs. Banks' house for a short visit. To see Mrs. Banks? Danny managed to ask. To see your mother, Alfred said. He handed Danny the shovel. There isn't much more to do here. Could you finish the job? Before Danny could ask him another question, Alfred went into the barn. Miss Clark kept Danny after school one afternoon. Danny, you don't have your mind on your work, she said. I had to call you twice to recite before you even heard me. Then we both discovered you weren't prepared. I'm sorry, Danny mumbled. I have a lot to think about lately. Miss Clark leaned her elbows on the desk and rested her chin in her hands. Yes, you have, Danny. A lot of difficult things have happened to you, and you've handled them well. You usually seem to be thinking ahead. You like to have a plan for tomorrow. I admire that quality in you. A plan, that's what I need. A plan, Danny said aloud. Miss Clark looked puzzled. A plan for what? She asked. Danny backed toward the door. Just something I have to work out myself, he said. Miss Clark shrugged. All right, Danny, but don't you forget what I said about keeping your mind on your schoolwork. I won't, he answered and ran out the door and halfway home before he was out of breath. During the rest of the walk, he thought hard about both Miss Pratka and Mr. Murphy, trying to remember everything they'd done or said. An idea began to tickle in the back of his mind. Danny laughed aloud as he suddenly knew what to do. Oh, he had a plan, all right. It'd begin with Mr. Murphy. Danny didn't waste any time. As soon as he arrived at the farm, he went straight to Alfred and said, I miss Ma and Peg. I'd like to see him tonight. Will you take me with you when you go visit? Alfred hesitated. It'll be a short visit. Tonight's another meeting. It's important I attend. Ralph Waldo Emerson will be the guest speaker. I'll go to the meeting with you too, Danny said. Quickly, you promised that when Mr. Emerson came to speak, that you'd take me and hear him. He had no wish to spend any more time than necessary with Mr. Murphy. I know I had promised, Alfred said. Tempers are high. I'm not sure it'll be safe for you. The meeting hall's in a rough area, and ever since Kansas was granted statehood, there's been more rabble-rousers than usual hanging out on the streets. Lately, they've been congregating on the street next to our meeting place, and they try to interrupt the speakers. Maybe it'd be better if you stayed with your mother. And I picked you up when the meeting's over. I'd really like to hear Mr. Emerson speak. Miss Clark read us a poem Mr. Emerson wrote. I'm not afraid, Danny insisted. I'll be with you. Alfred nodded as he thought, if there's any sign of trouble, suppose we can leave quickly. Then can I go? Yes, Alfred finally agreed. You can go. Just be sure to finish your schoolwork. Oh, I will. Danny ran to the house, shouted hello to Gussie's direction, dashed into the dining room, flinging off his coat, hat, and scarf as he ran. He rummaged in the drawer of the sideboard until he found paper and ink, seated himself at the table to write. Things to be brought to town. He had the paper, and under it he made a list. Soda for Alfred's indigestion, due to be made from eating too much heavy food. Stuff to make a poultice for boils, which come on from trying to digest too much heavy food. Headache powders for Alfred, who gets terrible headaches every afternoon after being stuffed with that heavy food at his noon dinner. Just to make the list a little more official, he added flour and salt. He added the paper in third. Wrote on the back, private, do not read this, and took it to the kitchen, where Mrs. Pratka would be sure to see it. He knew her curiosity would get the best of her, and she'd read it. She was so sensitive about her cooking, this letter was bound to chase her away. What you got there? Gussie asked him. Shopping list, Danny said. He started to read soda, flour, salt. I think we got plenty of salt, Gussie said. You would cross that out. She thought for a moment. How come you putting together a shopping list? I want to be helpful, Danny said. He held up the paper so she could see the back. Do you want to read it? Private? Gussie snickered and rolled her eyes. No thanks. I'm not much for reading, and a private shopping list with flowers soda ain't that interesting. Satisfied, Danny laid the list on the shelf where it could be easily seen. Leave it right here then. Promise? Promise, Gussie said. Here, take these plates and put them on the table when you go back to the dining room. Danny charged through his arithmetic problems and spelling words and wolfed down his supper. He was so impatient he could hardly stand it until he and Alfred were on the buggy and off to St. Joe. What has Ma been doing while she's staying with Mrs. Banks? Danny asked. No one's told me. Alfred's mouth turned down and his words were almost bitter. She's been cleaning Mrs. Banks' house and the house of the woman next door to earn money. She insists I sent for her train fare, was merely a loan, and she's intent on returning to me every penny. Ma's like that, Danny said. She wouldn't want you to think she has no pride. Alfred's brow wrinkled. Is that why she's paying me back? I'm sure of it, Danny said. If you knew Ma. Alfred interrupted, his voice so low he seemed to be talking to himself. I don't know her. I really don't know her at all. Maybe I could tell you more about her, Danny offered, though he didn't know how or where to begin. But Alfred shook his head. Not just now. Let me tell you what to expect at the meeting we're going to tonight. A few days ago, the Southern states seceded from the Union and organized a confederacy with Jefferson Davis as their president. Talk now is that Missouri's going to go with them. His interest caught. Danny listened intently, forgetting about Ma until he and Alfred arrived at Catherine Banks' house. Ma met Danny at the door with a vigorous hug that lifted him off his feet. I missed you, she cried. How's my darling boy? Danny held his mother tightly, wishing with all his heart that she'd set a date for the wedding, and they could enjoy having Ma and Alfred together and forget all about Mrs. Pratka and Mr. Murphy. Peg ran to hug Danny as he swung her around. He heard Ma say politely, Good evening, Alfred. Alfred answered every bit as quietly and formally, Good evening, Noreen. It didn't sound like Ma. It didn't sound like Alfred either. What was the matter with them? Danny and Alfred were no sooner seated in the parlor than a loud knock came at the door. Ma rushed to answer, and Alfred stared down his hands. Danny knew who the visitor was going to be. It was fine with him. There was no time like the present to put his plan into action. Ma's footsteps were light as she re-entered the parlor, and her face was bright with smiles. Look who's here, she announced. John Murphy. Ah, and there's that fine lad, Danny, Mr. Murphy said. He shook hands with Alfred first, then Danny, and bent to kiss Peg, who to Danny's dismay flung her arms around his neck in a hug. Here's a little something for you, Noreen, Mr. Murphy said, and pulled from his pocket a twist of peppermints, handing it to Ma with a flourish. So, Mr. Murphy is bringing Ma little gifts, was he? Danny could easily think of something for Alfred to bring to Ma. Maybe a flower. But when the snow, there was no flowers blooming. Oh, well, he'd figure that out later. Now it was time to carry out his plan. Peg came to sit on Alfred's lap, resting her head against his shoulders. How's my whiskers, she asked. Does he miss me? He looks for you at times, Alfred said. He sleeps in your room, as he's always done. Is my bed in the same place, she said. And my doll bed? Yes, Alfred said, right where you left him. Catherine arrived home, Andrew McNair with her, and everyone jumped up to greet the new arrivals. Catherine's cheeks were glowing, her eyes sparkled. Such a cold night, she said as she pulled off her gloves and rubbed her hands together briskly. Let's warm up with some hot spiced cider. Danny was pleased having so many people around would make the job easier. He waited till everyone in the room was busy chattering and passing around the mugs of cider and tugged at Mr. Murphy's sleeve, pulling him aside from the rest. I haven't had much chance to talk to you, Danny said. Mr. Murphy looked pleased. I'd enjoy a bit of conversation with you, Danny. Did you have something particular in mind? No, Danny said, making sure none of the others could hear him. I was just thinking about how it's a good thing Mr. Swenson's house has so many rooms, since Ma has so many children. Mr. Murphy's eyebrows rose, and Danny hurried to continue. I remember you said something about your income providing a comfortable living for a small family. Well, we Kellys couldn't be called a small family, but your brothers and sisters have new homes now, and Danny didn't let Mr. Murphy finish his sentence. Do you think Ma will rest until we're all together again? No, indeed. Oh, the fine times we've had singing and yelling, squabbling till the wee hours of the morning. We're a noisy lot, no denying it. Mr. Murphy frowned. That's not the way Noreen describes her children. Danny leaned close to whisper. Of course not. If your children were so wild they tore up the furniture, scared off the neighbors, what would you say? Danny, Alfred's voice was so close behind him, made him jump. Time to go. I'm going to the meeting too. Andrew said, I'll ride with you. Three of them put on their coats and said their goodbyes, and Danny didn't dare meet Mr. Murphy's eye. He felt pleased with himself. He'd given the man something to chew on, all right. Mr. Murphy would want little to do with Ma after what Danny had told him tonight. Seated between the two men he admired most, Alfred and Andrew, Danny was spellbound both by the distinct ringing tones of Mr. Emerson's voice and by the urgency of his anti-slavery message. Tears came to Danny's eyes as Mr. Emerson described the dreadful treatment of slaves in the southern states. Even the noise from the street outside didn't distract him. After all the talk, Danny went with Alfred to the podium to shake Mr. Emerson's hand. I'll help too, he promised. Mr. Emerson looked at Danny with great seriousness. Thank you, young man, he said, and Danny was elated. He followed Alfred out of the building. His exalted mood shattered as they were confronted by a jostling, jeering group of men who yelled insults at the abolitionists. The protesters' shadows jumped grotesquely under the flickering gaslight. distorted by the thin, damp mists from the river, which carried the sour, oily smell of bilge water from ships at anchor. Ignore those men, Alfred said. He gripped Danny's hand and strode toward the stables where he left the horse and buggy. They'd only gone a few yards when someone called to Alfred. It was one of the meeting's organizers, the heavy-set, short man Danny remembered as having urged Alfred's support. Alfred halted for a few moments. The two men were intent in their conversation. Danny walked on slowly, looking down the street. A few yards away, a man stood in the shadow of the building, staring back at him. Danny sucked in his breath and squinted, trying to see more clearly. Wasn't the man Dr. Mundy? He was. He had to be. Suddenly gripped with fear that made cold drops of sweat break out on his backbone, Danny realized that if he had seen Dr. Mundy, then Dr. Mundy had seen him.